So, who have had the biggest downfalls in the UFC? Well, today, guys, we're going to be finding that out. I've got fighters who I think have all had downfalls in their UFC career all on the screen, and we're going to drag and put them onto the screen, and then I'm going to talk about why they've had a downfall. But I think we all know why most of them have had a downfall, but we just need to talk about it anyway and reminisce on the good old days of when the fighter was actually good. So, I'm MMA Tizzer. Leave a like if you enjoy the video, subscribe if you're new, and without any further ado, let's get right into this downfall list. Starting off with a recent one and a very, very upsetting one, so get your tissues ready. It's Tony Ferguson. Now, Tony Ferguson, he's had a very rough time recently. I'm pretty sure he was actually 26-4. And he's now 26-9. He has 9 losses now. He's on a 5-fight losing streak, I think. And it's just crazy. It's a really big shame considering this guy. A lot of people were saying this was the guy to beat Khabib, and now this guy can't beat. I don't think there's any lightweight he beats. It's a shame, but it's true. He just lost to Bobby Green by submission, and Bobby Green isn't actually good on the ground whatsoever, so that's a shame. And nowadays, Tony just lets you pass. And the reason being is because Tony has taken too much damage, he's too old, I'm pretty sure he's got CTE, and his head just isn't in the game. I know he says he is, but he's wrong. And this just ain't the same killer that we were seeing back in the day when Tony was, the boogeyman of the lightweight division. It's hard to believe that this is the same person that was on a 12-fight win streak. But now we have to be honest and realise that Tony Ferguson would have never, ever beaten Khabib, unfortunately, because his ground game just isn't good enough. It's too easy to pass his guard, and against grapplers, he was getting controlled in otherwise matchups that he might have beaten, Beneil Dariush was just easily controlling him. Charles Oliveira was easily controlling him. That's where he was really getting let down in some of these matchups. Obviously, Michael Chandler, basically, the Michael Chandler fight was the end of Tony's career. That kick was the nail in the coffin. There was no hope after that. And it was then proved when he lost to Nate Diaz by submission. And I'm just saying, that guillotine, it hardly looked like it was in, so I have no idea what was going on. But that was a free win, Tony, against Nate Diaz. You could have grappled him, and you messed it up. So it's a shame. I don't think there's a winnable fight for Tony at this point in his career. It's a really big shame. This guy basically could have beat, he was in the top 5 for a very long time. He could have beat anyone outside of the top 5 for about 5 years. And after the Justin Gaethje he lost, everything went downhill. And basically the fact that he was never going to be good again was solidified after Michael Chandler annihilated him in the second round. After having a pretty good first round where he dropped Chandler. So just goes to show how unpredictable MMA is these days. And rest in peace, Tony Ferguson's career. He will be remembered as a legend of the sport, and I'm sure he'll be in the Hall of Fame. Probably. We move on. Marlon Moraes. Now, Marlon Moraes was a very, very dangerous bantamweight at one point in time. He actually has a knockout win over Aldo. He kneed Aldo in the face, legally, unlike Jan, and sent him to the shadow. He was completely out cold. He went for a kick, and Aldo's face connected with his knee instead. So he has a win over Aldo, which is an insanely good win. It's aged super well. And then in his prime, this guy was a legit danger. Very, very potent striker, lethal kicks, lethal hands, lethal boxing. However, Marlon Moraes has a problem. It's a chin issue, okay? Tony Ferguson does not have a chin problem. Tony Ferguson's chin is pretty good. However, it is very good. It's got worse, but it's still good. Marlon Moraes' chin is made of paper mache. It crumbles. It's literally a deck chair because it will fold in half when any pressure is applied to it. It's a dodgy deck chair. It will fold in half when any weight is landed on it. And it's just proven, this guy was getting knocked out by people he would easily smoke in his career. And then when he's already lost a few fights, they give Song Yadong to Marlon Moraes. And that is just insane to me. Why would you give them Song Yadong? He is an actual destroyer of chins in the bantamweight division. What a bad idea from the UFC. Then he fought in the PFL, and I'm pretty sure he got knocked out in the PFL, which is terrible because if you're getting knocked out in the PFL, you need to retire because it's full of cans, let's be honest, guys. So, Marlon Moraes, he will be missed. And he has knocked out Aljamain Sterling. So Aljamain Sterling can't even say he's a can because he knocked him out. So there you go. It's crazy how UFC works. MMA math makes no sense whatsoever. It's crazy. This sport makes no sense. We move on. Another bantamweight. There's a lot of bantamweights on this list, actually, so prepare yourselves. Well, I didn't even mean to select him, but he is a bantamweight who's a can. Cody Garbrandt. We all know how good Cody Garbrandt was in his prime. This guy was insane. He had one of the best title performances of all time, absolutely annihilating then champion Dominic Cruz. He looked really good doing it. This guy has insane power for someone so small. This guy isn't a big bantamweight. He's quite small. He can make flyweight. A lot of them, the newer bantamweights, cannot make flyweight. And he looked insanely good. He has fast hands. He had good boxing. He had leg kicks. His grappling was good enough so he could sprawl, and he wasn't really getting taken down and controlled. However, the problem was Cody Garbrandt, his nickname was not No Love, it was No Chin, because Cody Garbrandt had a secret his entire career, and it's the fact that he never had a chin, and it got exposed. And ever since it was exposed, people would just trade with this guy because they knew if they found the chin, they would get the win, even if he's way better than them. And it worked out, and he's been knocked out, I think, about 4 times since then. Most recently, he was finished by Kai Kara-France. However, Cody has got a win, but it was against a no-name Khan whose name I've already forgotten, even though he won about 3 months ago. But knocked out by Kai Kara-France, who's a flyweight. Not good at all. In his prime, he would have smoked Kai Kara-France. Huge shame. There seems to be a pattern on this list I'm already detecting. If you have no chin, a downfall starts and your chin gets progressively worse. But yeah, Cody No Chin Garbrandt, deserves a spot on this list. I don't know how he's deteriorated this much, and I don't even think he's that old. I think he's like 34, maybe 33. So, he could actually still win a fight. Maybe a good fight. He needs to basically get a bit more confidence. He seems a bit scared now because he knows his chin's terrible. And he was trying to fight O'Malley. O'Malley would absolutely annihilate him in the first round. So let's not do that. Cody Garbrandt, what a absolute immense downfall. We move on. He has got a win though, unlike a lot of people on this list. Dominic Reyes. Dominic Reyes is the saddest story, in my opinion, in the UFC when it comes to downfalls, because this guy genuinely wasn't the number 1 pound for pound fighter in the world on a technicality. And you're going to say, no, he wasn't. Well, let me pitch it to you this way. He fought Jones. He beat Jones 3-2 rounds, okay? He won the first 3, Jones won 4 and 5. That's literally facts. You can't argue that. Just go and watch the fight and you'll understand me. So he beat number 1 pound for pound light heavyweight champion John Jones, got robbed. So in theory, he was the number 1 pound for pound fighter in the world. And that loss, that really knocked his confidence. And you can tell because ever since then, he was just never the same. And it wasn't a skill thing, okay? I'm telling you now, because he was young, okay? It's not like he got old and slow or like he got injuries. It wasn't anything like that. This guy genuinely just lost all confidence after that. Then he fought Jan Blachowicz for the belt, and then he got absolutely annihilated by Jan Blachowicz. And it still hurts to see that knockout, because after that, I knew things were only going to get worse for Dom, and it was true. He fights, out of all the fights they could have given him, they gave him Yuri Prohaska, and Yuri basically rearranged his facial construction when he did a spinning elbow into the side of his face. Absolutely horrific knockout. I'm pretty sure that did permanent damage to Dominic Reyes' face, and obviously that's going to damage your chin, and his chin was already a bit suspect, obviously after getting flatlined by Jan. And that was the end of Dominic Reyes' chin. He now has no chin. He will now chicken dance if you land a solid jab. And then he decides to fight another power puncher. I can't keep defending him. Why? Who's his manager? Seriously, his manager's giving him the most L matchups. Anyway, he makes him fight Ryan Spann, and he gets knocked out by Ryan Spann, unsurprisingly, in the first round. So, absolutely terrible. His agent needs to be fired. They are literally giving him the hardest matchups. Make him fight a wrestler, okay? He can beat wrestlers. Make him fight a striker who's a decision fighter, Just anyone but a power puncher. And they give him Jan. They give him Yuri. They give him Spann. All power punchers. Crazy. Anyway, RIP Dominic Reyes, the uncrowned light heavyweight champion, the uncrowned number 1 pound for pound fighter in the world. If he beat Jones, he would have not lost another fight. I'm telling you, it was a confidence thing. He would have beat Jan in a match where he was actually confident. We move on. Another bantamweight. I'm sorry, guys. This list is actually full of bantamweights. Dominic Cruz. Now, Dominic Cruz had injuries, okay? He was sidelined for an extremely long amount of time. He had injuries, so To be fair, this one is the most justified on the list because he had literally like career-ending injuries, came back and still won. So I'll give him credit. Dominic Reyes is actually not really a downfall in the sense that, Tony Ferguson's is a downfall or Marlon Moraes, Dominic Cruz actually has a reason for why he was worse. And also he got older too because he was sidelined for so long. And he's actually won since he came back. So fair enough to him. He got the belt back. Then he got beaten by Garbrandt. And after that, it was all downhill. He has had a few wins, but recently he got finished by Marlon Vera. He was actually winning the fight though, but that's just classic Vera. He loses to everyone, then we'll get a lucky KO. He obviously head kicked Dominic Cruz when he was circling out and finished him, and that's a shame. I think that probably will be Cruz's last fight in UFC. However, if it isn't, what I'd love to see is Cruz versus Garbrandt, because then we can get a win for one of these guys no matter what, and they can both retire together. And that'll be the end of that rivalry forever, and they can become friends and, sail into the sunset together. So, yeah, do that. But it's a shame to see because this guy was so talented. He has good cardio. He has pretty good footwork. Fast hands. He doesn't really have much power. That's his problem. His grappling was decent. His chin was all right. It'd get him through fights. Deteriorated now because he's took a lot of damage. And he's got injuries and stuff. So he's just not as good as he used to be. He's got money now. He's looking quite old, I don't think I want to see him fight again. I see him in interviews, he's looking old. He's looking like he's 45, so maybe if he's not having the Garbrandt fight, I don't want to see him fight again. But if he is, that's a winnable fight, so let's book it. And it's not too dangerous for him because I don't think Garbrandt's anywhere near as good as he used to be. So yeah, let's make that happen. Dominic Cruz, what a downfall, but he had injuries. We'll excuse him. We move on. I'm going to mix up. We have a featherweight, Edson Barboza. Now, Edson Barboza at one point in the UFC was basically one of the most dangerous strikers. This guy's literally had the most lethal kicks ever. He was knocking people out with spin kicks, body kicks. He was getting frequent body kick KOs. He's even got a few leg kick finishes where their leg hurts so much they just literally say, I'm not fighting anymore, and they give up mid-fight. And he's got a lot of head kick KOs and punches. This guy was lethal with his hands as well. He wasn't just a one-dimensional kickboxer where he only kicked. Very talented. However, he had a problem. He had two. Chin problem. Well, actually, he had three. Grappling. This guy has literally zero grappling. He gets controlled by grapplers. Chin problem. He doesn't have a very good chin. And he has a bit of a cardio problem. His cardio isn't very good. It's not phenomenal, so in 5-round fights he's never going to do very well. And he basically got beaten. Khabib beat him at lightweight. This guy ain't a lightweight, but then he cuts down to 145, and although he won't get controlled as much, he has a chin problem there and a cardio problem there because of the cut, and that was resulting in him getting knocked out by people. He got knocked out by Giga Chikadze. That's a bit of a tongue twister. And he just has a lot of downfalls. He's got a lot of good wins in the past. A very legit fighter back in the day. However, now he's got a lot of bad losses. He's coming off a win though. He knocked out Billy Quarantillo with a knee. He's not completely finished. He's not a can, but he ain't really going to beat anyone into the top 10, is he? So yeah, that's where he belongs. He has had a downfall in my opinion. So yeah, Edson Barboza there. We move on. Another bantamweight. I'm sorry, guys. He's the last bantamweight on the list. Okay, last one. Petr Yan. Petr Yan. Okay, will Petr Yan beat a lot of guys outside the top 5? Yes, he probably will in bantamweight. However, he's probably going to get matched up against someone who will beat him. This guy basically made his own career lose because he would have coasted to a decision win or maybe a late TKO finish against Aljamain Sterling in their first fight, and he threw an illegal knee. And that basically changed the course of his career trajectory forever. Because he then fought Aljo in a rematch. Aljo had time to improve and work on his game. And he won. He did win the fight, okay? He won the second fight. Aljo won it. You can't say Yan won it because Aljo won 3-2. And I'm pretty sure one of them was a 10-8. So anyway, he won the fight. That's all we need to know. So then he can't rematch Aljo for a third time because he just lost a decision. So then he fights Sean O'Malley, okay? He loses to Sean O'Malley. Now, that was in itself at Abu Dhabi. That was a very controversial decision. But honestly, that fight's a coin toss. It can go either way. And in my opinion, it was probably better to give Sean O'Malley the win because he'd actually done more visible damage, and also he's a bigger star than Peter Yan at this point. He's going forwards. Peter Yan's career is going downhill. So let's give Sean O'Malley the win on visible damage. Move on. That's what they did. However, very bad for Peter Yan because guess who he gets matched up with next? Merab. Now, Merab is a nightmare matchup for Peter Yan because he's basically better Aljo, and Aljo beats Yan, okay? So, takes Yan down about 60 times in that fight. He just spammed takedowns. Yan had no time to get off any striking offense because every time he basically separated, Merab would shoot again because he has god tier cardio, and he'd win the fight by 5-0 decision, which I predicted. So yeah, such a shame. Very, very legit striker. Just doesn't really pick the best matchups, and he kind of like, I don't know, we need a bit more urgency. I know people say, oh, he downloads data on his opponents. Well, that's good in a 5-round fight, but in these 3-round fights, in the Sean O'Malley fight, you need to go out in the first round and try and finish immediately. You need to try and get the W off the bat. Otherwise, you're just going to end up in sticky situations like he found himself in. So yeah, Peter Yan, big downfall. We move on. Alistair Overeem. Now, Alistair Overeem at one point was one of the scariest men on the planet. He was extremely dangerous. This guy was the horse meat guy. He ate loads of horse meat because that's what made him really big. Apparently, it definitely wasn't the banned substances which he got caught taking. This guy was very good, okay? Very good striker, good kickboxer. His grappling was all right. He actually has really good grappling for a kickboxer. He has a lot of good wins. Very, very dangerous. And he knocked out Brock Lesnar. The only problem is Alistair Overeem has no chin, okay? He never had a chin, and it got worse every time he got knocked out. The most infamous of all is the Francis Ngannou loss. Francis Ngannou took whatever he had left of the chin and ended it forever. Obviously, after that, fights Jairzinho Rozenstruik, and then he loses half his lip from like a third. There was literally 3 seconds left in round 5, and he gets punched in the face, TKO'd/KO'd, and loses half his mouth, which was never a good look. And that was the end of Overeem in the UFC. What a downfall. This guy was very dangerous, but after people realised he had no chin, it was very, very bad for him. He'd lose a lot of fights. People were more confident to fight with him and strike with him on the feet. However, he does have a win over Sergey Pavlovich, which is a really, really good win because Sergey's actually insane, and he defeated the undefeated Sergey Pavlovich. So good win, but geez, big downfall for Overeem, who was at one point the scariest man in the heavyweight division and basically became the laughing stock by the end of it. We move on. Anderson Silva. Now, Anderson Silva, at one point, many people would have considered him maybe one of the GOATs, but he didn't consider himself it or something because he just didn't take himself seriously enough at points. Like, he could have won a lot of fights that he threw. He threw a fight where he was moving his head back and forth and he got KO'd. And after that, he just, I know he got older and stuff and he was financially set, but it just really looked to me like he didn't care. I feel like a lot of those fights were winnable fights for him and he just didn't care, The Uriah Hall fight, he just looked off. He just looked off in all these fights, and I know he's old, but I just feel like he was talented enough to maybe get some of these wins, but I just don't think he cared as much as he used to. This guy was insane. I think he's got the win record in the UFC. He had 16 wins in a row. What an insane record. And great fighter in his prime, one of the greatest of all time. Good off his back, submitted Chael Sonnen, and then knocked him out in the rematch after getting controlled the entire first fight and then subbed him. So yeah, very, very good striker, kind of Israel Adesanya vibes, but he just went on a huge downfall at the latter end of his career. He got old, he looked like he didn't care, he got sloppy, and then he moved up, which is never really a good idea, is it? So yeah, Anderson Silva, big downfall. We all know about the Silva downfall, so there's not really there's no secrets in it. There's no really point that I need to explain it any further. Big downfall for one of the middleweight greats and maybe the middleweight GOAT. We don't know yet. We move on. Our final person on the list, obviously not the only downfalls in UFC, but the only people I'm putting on this list, Ronda Rousey. Now, Ronda Rousey was probably the biggest female star the UFC has ever seen. She was literally like everyone would know who she is. People who didn't watch UFC would know who she was. She was a household name in America, especially. I think everyone knew who she was. She was on like all these sports magazines, and she was the first big women's MMA fighter. So, you know, props to her. However, I think there was a lot of pressure that came with that. And I think she eventually just caved into the pressure because she got knocked out by Holly Holm. And I think that was an easy win for her. But the problem with Ronda is she has really bad striking, okay? Now, is Ronda Rousey insanely good on the ground? Yes, she is. However, it seems like her takedowns are a little bit too jiu-jitsu, and sometimes they don't work, and when they don't work, it's a disaster, and Ronda's getting finished. Holly Holm proved that. She absolutely starched her, and after that, it was all downhill for Ronda Rousey, who was on a 6-fight win streak before that, undefeated, knocked out by Holly Holm, then with a head kick, and then she fought people like Amanda Nunes, lost to her, obviously got destroyed by her, and she just kept on getting knocked out, and it wasn't a good look, and she retired from the sport, and now she's a wrestler in WWE. So that just shows a downfall in itself if you've gone all the way to WWE, because if anything, you should be going the other way, because that seems to have more success, because at least Brock Lesnar got a championship belt. Can't really speak for CM Punk though. So yeah, Ronda Rousey, household name, all the way down to someone who got absolutely not annihilated multiple times and then retired. So yeah, big downfall. And that is the downfall video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Just a bit of a different video, but I thought it'd be fun to do. And yeah, comment down below who else should be in this video, because obviously I can't fit everyone in due to time constraints, and there's a lot of guys that have had a very rough UFC downfall. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Join my members, exclusive content on there. You're not going to want to miss that. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.